Let's get your questions in and your answers out.
All right, let's go live to Superfan Daniel on the field with a question from our Legion of Patreon fans. Go ahead, Daniel.
What are character concepts you've always wanted to play but have never been able to make work?
Character concept we've always wanted to play.
Man,
they've never been
I
able
want
to
to start
make
out with
work.
a downer like that. It's like, here, look at all your failures that you could never even get off of the drawing board.
Work. I think like yeah. You've
well,
got way more character concepts than
in
I've
5th
had.
edition, the Halfling Barbarian.
Sure. Okay.
If you're doing point buy.
If you're doing point buy, there's
To
a
be
lot
specific.
about there's a lot about the way point buy restricts your conceptual
Yes.
your conceptual range for a character. Sure.
Yeah, you can't really do the extreme badass that you want starting out, but of course you could work into it.
I mean, let's be honest. Starting with a 14 or a 15 in your primary stat sucks, but it's not the end of the world. You will live.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Enemies will die. Things will be fine. You'll just be a little bit more behind than someone who started with a 16, or those rare few who have the point buy or that rolled their stats and got 18s and 20s for their starting ones.
It does happen.
I think for me, the concept that I
You're good.
can't seem to make work and want to is someone that manipulates time. Like there's not enough time manipulation. And are you looking for a die?
Yeah, I dropped a dice. I'm sorry, it's right in front of your right foot. If you just kick forward.
Like freaking out right now.
Yeah, it's right in front of your right foot. If you just kick your foot forward.
Oh, there it is.
There you go.
I think like it's a character that messes with time, or there's nothing like that. What are you gonna get? You got haste, slow, and time stop. Like those are the 3 spells, really, that manipulate time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really it.
Yeah, and even then, like haste and slow is you're sort of like reflavoring, reskinning those things. So
yeah, I mean, if you get into, it's only UA, but the Mystic, they have that one, the celerity discipline.
Yeah,
kind of messes with that. There's also the one that's like victory before battle. That one.
Yes,
it's one of the mantles.
The mantle, mantle of command, maybe.
Mantle of leadership, or whatever it is.
Right.
That kind, you could see that as kind of messing with time. You're allowing people to act quicker and whatever, but...
I'd say the other one for me is a mounted soldier, a mounted combatant. It's one of those things where history has shown us that mounted warriors, up through mechanization, mounted warriors have a place on the battlefield, are vital in warfare.
Yeah.
They're not always appropriate, but as Napoleon says, they're useful at the beginning, the middle, or the end of a battle.
Yeah.
And in case we need to be reminded, Napoleon offers us helpful reminders that way.
Well, he was pretty good.
Right, sure. He had some decent cavalry. It's a bit like in Dungeons and Dragons, it's difficult to make that character concept work, normally because you're venturing into secluded, confined spaces, the dungeon or a location like that. But also it just seems like that the advantages conferred by being mounted aren't...
They're not reflected in the game mechanics.
Really reflected in the game mechanics that well. And so it always feels a little lackluster for a mounted combatant.
Yeah, I'm shaking my brain here because for the most part I think 5th edition does pretty well that most concepts can work and you won't suck.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, I think the rules of 5th edition provided like a baseline competency so you have a character that's not just like complete garbage.
Yeah.
How would you approach a monstrous humanoid PC game, such as players wanting to be Illithids, or...
Oh, okay.
Well, Jim, you want to go ahead and take this?
I mean, I think that's probably fine given, like, if you're changing up the lore behind them. Like, I can't imagine with like the standard lore for something like Illithids that you could find a place for an Illithid in an adventuring party long term. Like, at best, you're like, yeah, you can guest star as an Illithid for a few sessions.
Yeah.
But then we're gonna have to find a different character for you. In theory, I don't mind monstrous PCs. I think they're, they work if it's. I don't know. Let me back up. Like if you're saying like I'm gonna make a character that's a monster, then you've already accepted that things are gonna be a little bit unbalanced and a little bit wacky, and you should just go all in and not like, oh, but we got to make sure everything's nice and. But this option is balanced against that. No, just go. One of you guys be a storm giant, and the other guys be a beholder, and whatever. If that's the kind of thing you want to do. There is that doc somebody put up on DM's Guild, I think, that they took every monster in the monster manual and like made a race out of them that you could choose.
Oh,
That's probably where I would start because I don't like doing a lot of work.
yeah. Well, but I mean, going to our Out of the Abyss game, Audie played a vampire.
She played a vampire.
You did. I thought you did a great job of breaking up the vampire abilities and their feats that she could take at certain levels. So you kind of grow into it. I don't see why you couldn't do that with most monsters. Like even an Illithid.
Yeah.
You're a young Illithid. You haven't really refined your powers.
You only got 2 tentacles.
You only got 2 tentacles. Of course, nobody in the party would ever let you stay on watch by yourself.
No,
like no. You rest. You rest. We got it.
Most of the challenges I see with like monstrous PCs are not mechanical; they're thematic and sort of narrative.
Yeah,
where it's just like you're really going to have to work hard to justify why this Illithid is out on the surface, out in the sunlight, where they're going to get all dried out and shit.
Yeah,
and not eating everyone's brain.
Yeah,
right. Like and so those are the kinds of things where I'm like, unless you're radically altering the lore behind the monsters, it can be difficult to justify.
Yeah.
But in theory, I have no problem with it.
Right. I mean, you're literally running a game where everybody's playing monstrous races.
Yeah, it just sounds like a fun game.
Yeah.
A Bugbear. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Bugbear Battlemaster. Yeah, he's a Bugbear Druid.
That's cool.
But yeah, I would totally play a Bugbear Battlemaster with a glaive. Fuck.
Mm-hmm.
Like 15.
They have words.
You get up to what, like a 10, 15 foot reach?
10 foot reach, I bet, yeah.
Take lunging attack.
Mm-hmm.
Man. Do we want to do one more? We kind of. Let's do one more.
While we still got half races kind of in the back of your mind, what other half race would you think would be thematic and or interesting mechanic-wise if you were to add one?
I'd probably add something that didn't have human as the half.
Mm-hmm.
Like
an elven half giant or a
or elven furbolg.
Elven furbolg. What would that be like?
Or a like a halfling and a goblin.
Yeah.
What happens when a halfling and a goblin?
A goblin.
A goblin.
Halflin. My name is Halflin Goblin. The Halfling Goblin. That's gonna be a character.
Or like
now.
a gnomeling, a gnome half. Like something that's not like human as the other half. Or what do you do when you cross an orc and a hobgoblin? Those
you
kinds
get a bugbear.
Yeah, you get a bugbear. Those are the kinds of things I would much rather see a system for building character races that is like in the second edition. There was a second edition skills and powers option where it was like breaks down all of the racial abilities that they have, assigns them a point cost, and then it's like you get 5 points to build your character race. Go nuts. Mm-hmm. And then you can pick and choose, and then you can say like, well, this is the character I made, and they're, why does it have to be just that humans are the only ones that can breed with elves and orcs, and not with dwarves? There's no half dwarves running around,
Well, I mean, there should be. Of course, isn't there some mythos that like humans are the offspring of elves and dwarves? Or am I just making that up?
They could be making it up. I mean, in standard D&D, they all have their own origin stories, right? Their respective gods create them in isolation and then like put them all in a sandbox together, and they all gang up on the orcs and hate them.
Yeah. They take their stuff, and then the orcs fight back, and it's like, look at these assholes.
Yeah, look at these assholes fighting back.
Yeah.
What's wrong with them? Well, they took all their shit.
It's just like in any sport, it's not the guy who hits who gets the penalty. It's the guy who retaliates.
And
they're the asshole that the refs see.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing with orcs. What about go back to Illithids? What about if an Illithid and a human?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, like, baseline Illithids are made because you take a humanoid corpse and you put a Illithid tadpole in its ear, and then it eats the brain and creates an Illithid. And, like, so they don't, like, breed so much as colonize a body. But you could have one that, like, what if you stopped the process midway, or
instead of like tentacles, like they have like their tongue comes out as a tentacle,
as
a whole thing,
Their
like skin's just kind of clammy, and they always seem like they have like a sweat on their brow.
Well, you could do like a half fish person, like a half Triton or something, where they're just sort of like
just have kind of gills,
like an old Greg
situation. Old Greg. I mean, really, would you want to look at that downstairs mix-up?
You don't want to look at the downstairs mix-up of old Greg because old Greg's a half fish man.
Yeah.
Anyway,
You like Bayless? I got some Bayless. Creamy Bayless.
Crack Fox.
Yeah.
What are these?
Anyway,
Those are my squishy boots. Them's my squishy boots.
Yeah, that's what I would. That's what I do. It's something that lets you mix and match the racial traits to create your own custom stuff. So it's like, yeah, this is an elf and a goblin.
Yeah.
Or,
Jim, I got a question for you.
yeah.
Do you want the funk? Do you like the
Do
funk?
you like the funk? Could you love me?
Could you ever love me?
Could you ever love me?
Sorry.
That's all right.